Everything you know about Ontario is wrong. The province is not Canada's largest. Toronto is not the federal capital. Niagara Falls has been running at reduced power for decades, and almost nobody knows it. There are 50 facts on this list, and every single one of them is something people believe. None of them are true. Number 1. Ontario is not Canada's largest province. Quebec holds that title, and it is not close. Quebec covers 1.54 million square kilometers. Ontario covers 1.07 million square kilometers. The gap between them is roughly the size of France. Ontario has been second largest since Confederation. Number 2. Ontario is a landlocked province. Ontario's northern edge runs along Hudson Bay and James Bay, giving it more than 1,000 kilometers of saltwater coastline that connects to the Atlantic Ocean through Hudson Strait. Most people who have lived in Ontario their entire lives have never heard this. Number 3. Ontario borders all 5 Great Lakes. That is incorrect. Ontario borders 4 of the Great Lakes: Superior, Huron, Erie, and Ontario. Lake Michigan sits entirely within the United States and never touches Canadian territory. It is the only one of the 5 that is completely American. Number 4. Windsor is north of Detroit. Windsor is south of Detroit. The Detroit River runs east to west at that crossing, and Windsor sits on the south bank at about 42 degrees north, further south than parts of Northern California. It is one of the most southerly cities in Canada. Number 5. Ontario is mostly flat farmland. The agricultural south is a thin strip. About 90% of Ontario's total land area is Canadian shield and boreal forest. Northern Ontario alone is larger than France. The flat farmland people picture is a small fraction of the province. Number 6. Ontario is smaller than Texas. That claim is false. Ontario covers 1.07 million square kilometers. Texas covers 695,000 square kilometers. Ontario is roughly 1.5 times the size of Texas. If you drop Texas onto a map of Ontario, it would not reach border to border. Number 7. The province is big, but crossing it by car is manageable in a day. A resident driving from Windsor to Kenora, staying entirely within Ontario, covers more distance than driving from Windsor all the way south to Jacksonville, Florida. The province spans 1,600 kilometers east to west and operates across 2 time zones. Number 8. Lake Ontario is the largest of the Great Lakes. Lake Ontario is the smallest of the Great Lakes. Lake Superior has a surface area roughly 9 times larger. The confusion comes from the province sharing the name with the lake, which leads people to assume both are dominant in their category. Number 9. Lake Erie is the deepest of the Great Lakes. In fact, Lake Erie is the shallowest, averaging about 19 meters. Lake Superior is the deepest, at around 149 meters. Erie's shallow depth makes it the most vulnerable to temperature shifts and the most prone to full ice coverage in winter. Number 10. The Niagara Escarpment is just the cliff face at Niagara Falls. The Niagara Escarpment is a geological ridge running 725 kilometers across Ontario, from the Niagara Peninsula through the Bruce Peninsula to Manitoulin Island. It is a UNESCO World Biosphere Reserve. The waterfall is one small feature along its edge. Ontario has about 250,000 freshwater lakes. Finland, often called the Land of 1,000 Lakes, has roughly 188,000. Ontario has more lakes than any country in Europe. Number 12. The claim that the name Ontario has French origins is false. The name actually comes from the Iroquoian languages, most likely from a word meaning Great Lake or Beautiful Lake. It was never a French word, and the name predates French administration of the region. Number 13. The claim is that Ontario was named before Lake Ontario. Lake Ontario appears in historical records from 1641. The province did not exist until Confederation in 1867. The name came from the lake, not the other way around. Number 14. Toronto is the capital of Canada. That is false. Ottawa is Canada's national capital. Toronto is the capital of Ontario. The confusion persists because Toronto dominates Canadian media, finance, and sport, but Parliament and the federal government sit in Ottawa. Number 15. Ottawa is in Quebec. Ottawa sits on the Ontario side of the Ottawa River. Gatineau, directly across the river, is in Quebec. The two cities form a single visual urban area, which is why the mistake is common. But Ottawa has always been in Ontario. Number 16. Toronto has not always been called Toronto. The city was called York, and it was frequently nicknamed Muddy York because its streets were unpaved. It kept the name York until it was incorporated in 1834. The name Toronto comes from a Mohawk word meaning a place where trees stand in water. Number 17. Downtown. Toronto is built on ancient bedrock. Much of downtown Toronto is built on former lakebed reclaimed from Lake Ontario. The CN Tower sits on land that was once part of the lake. The natural shoreline ran considerably further north than today's waterfront. Number 18. Ontario has a secret government bunker. This one is actually true. During the Cold War, the provincial government constructed a fully operational 4-story underground bunker designed to house essential government operations in the event of a nuclear attack. It existed. Most Ontarians have never heard of it. Number 19. Toronto's subway is among the oldest in North America. Toronto's subway opened in 1954. Chicago's elevated rail dates to 1897. New York's subway opened in 1904. London's Underground opened in 1863. By any comparison, Toronto's system is relatively recent. Number 20. All of Ontario's borders are with other Canadian provinces. That is false. Ontario shares land borders with Quebec and Manitoba, but it also borders 5 states in the United States: Minnesota, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York. That southern boundary runs roughly 2,700 kilometers, along rivers, lake shores, and the 45th parallel. Number 21. Ontario skyscrapers rely on conventional air conditioning. Toronto's downtown core is partially cooled by a massive deep-water system that pumps cold water up from the depths of Lake Ontario. It is one of the largest systems of its kind in the world, and it dramatically reduces energy consumption in the city's core. Number 22. Ontario, California is where the name came from. Ontario, California was named after the Canadian province when settlers developed the area in the 1880s. The province had carried the name since 1867. The California city adopted it as a direct reference. 22 down. The Niagara facts next are the ones most Canadians carry as settled truth. Number 23. Niagara Falls is mostly on the American side. Horseshoe Falls, the largest of the 3 waterfalls at Niagara, sits almost entirely on the Ontario side and carries roughly 90% of the total water flow. The iconic curved waterfall is Canadian. Number 24. Niagara Falls runs at full natural strength. An international treaty between Canada and the United States allows both countries to divert a large share of the Niagara River upstream for hydroelectric power. The diversion is greatest at night and in winter. What visitors see during peak tourist hours is a managed flow, not the river's natural volume. It hasn't run at full strength in decades. Number 25. Niagara Falls will look the same in 500 years. That is not true. The falls are constantly eroding. Water undercuts the rock beneath the edge, the lip collapses, and the waterfall retreats upstream. The falls have moved several kilometers over thousands of years. Modern diversion has slowed the erosion, but has not stopped it. Number 26. The Great Lakes contain about 5% of Earth's fresh water. The Great Lakes actually hold approximately 21% of Earth's total surface fresh water. They are the largest surface freshwater system in the world. 5% is not even close. Number 27. 3 U.S. states, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, make up the majority of Lake Superior's shoreline. Ontario holds roughly 1/3 of the shoreline. The lake is shared, but calling it primarily Canadian misreads the map. Number 28. The claim that the Great Lakes never freeze is false. Lake Erie regularly develops significant ice coverage in cold winters because it is shallow. In severe winters, ice covers most of the lake's surface. Number 29. Great Lakes water levels are stable. In reality, Great Lakes water levels fluctuate significantly. Lake Ontario hit record high levels in 2017 and again in 2019, flooding hundreds of kilometers of shoreline. Those swings are large enough to reshape coastlines within a decade. Number 30. The Great Lakes are disconnected from the ocean. The St. Lawrence Seaway, completed in 1959, connects the Great Lakes directly to the Atlantic Ocean. Ocean-going vessels can travel from the open Atlantic all the way to Thunder Bay, Ontario. The Seaway transformed the Great Lakes from an isolated interior basin into an inland maritime system. Number 31. The CN Tower is the world's tallest structure. It held the title of the world's tallest freestanding structure from 1976 until 2007, when the Burj Khalifa topped out at 828 meters. The CN Tower stands at 553 meters, and it has not held that record for nearly 2 decades. Number 32. CN stands for Canadian National Railway. The tower was built by CN Rail to solve a broadcasting problem. Toronto's growing skyline was blocking signal transmission across the city. Number 33. The CN Tower was built by the Canadian government. CN Rail built the tower. At the time, CN Rail was a Crown corporation, government-owned, but it operated as a railway company pursuing its own telecommunications solution. CN Rail was later privatized. Number 34. The CN Tower was not built primarily as a tourist attraction. It was built to solve a dead zone in broadcast signal coverage caused by Toronto's downtown skyline. The observation deck and the restaurant were added because the height made them commercially viable. Tourism was a secondary benefit, not the original purpose. Number 35. Ontario has always been a Canadian province. Before Confederation in 1867, the region was Upper Canada, established as a separate British colony in 1791. It was briefly called Canada West before Confederation. The name Ontario did not exist politically until Canada became a country. Number 36. Ontario and Quebec have always been separate. From 1841 to 1867, Ontario and Quebec were merged into a single colony called the Province of Canada under the Act of Union. Upper Canada and Lower Canada shared one legislature. The arrangement produced severe political deadlock that drove both regions toward Confederation. Number 37. Toronto has always been the capital of Ontario. The capital of Upper Canada was first established at Newark, now Niagara-on-the-Lake. It moved to York in 1796 because military planners believed it was less vulnerable to American attack across the Niagara River. That calculation turned out to be wrong. Number 38. The War of 1812 had no major battles on Ontario soil. Upper Canada was the primary land theater of the War of 1812. American forces crossed the border and captured York in April 1813, burning the legislature and military stores. York was the largest settlement in Upper Canada, and its fall reshaped the rest of the conflict. Number 39. Americans burned the White House before anyone burned York. The sequence is reversed. Americans burned York in April 1813. British and Canadian forces burned Washington in August 1814, more than a year later. The destruction of the White House was a direct response to what had happened in Ontario first. Number 40. Ontario was settled primarily by French colonists. In reality, Ontario's colonial population was built predominantly by British loyalists who fled the United States after the American Revolution, crossing into Upper Canada in large numbers after 1783. French settlement in Ontario was limited compared to Quebec. Number 41. Ontario was one of the last regions in North America to be inhabited. The area now called Ontario was inhabited by Indigenous peoples for at least 12,000 years before European contact. The Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Huron-Wendat had territories, trade networks, and political structures across the region long before any European arrived. Number 42. Ontario is an officially bilingual province. New Brunswick is Canada's only officially bilingual province. Ontario has French language services legislation that guarantees services in French in designated areas, and its francophone population is in the hundreds of thousands. But official provincial bilingualism, the way New Brunswick operates, does not apply to Ontario. Number 43rd. Many people think Ontario produces the most maple syrup in Canada. In reality, Quebec produces over 70% of the world's maple syrup supply. If you are holding a bottle of maple syrup, there is better than a 70% chance it came from Quebec. Ontario has a maple syrup industry, but it is not the dominant producer by any measure. Number 44. Some people say Ontario's economy is built on oil and gas like Alberta's. In reality, Ontario's economy runs on manufacturing, financial services, and real estate. There is no significant oil and gas sector. Ontario generates about 37% of Canada's total GDP. None of that comes from petroleum. Alberta and Ontario are structurally different economies. Number 45. Ontario's farms are controlled by corporations. More than 95% of farms in Ontario are owned and operated by families. Many have incorporated for legal and tax reasons, and that has been misread as a corporate takeover. The corporate farm narrative is largely a myth built on a misunderstanding of basic business structuring. Number 46. Ontario's electrical grid runs mostly on fossil fuels. Nearly 90% of Ontario's electricity comes from zero-emission sources, primarily nuclear and hydroelectric. The province operates one of the cleanest electrical grids of any major industrial economy in the world. Number 47. Southern Ontario has brutal Arctic-level winters. Toronto averages about 121 centimeters of snow per year. Buffalo, New York, directly across the lake, averages roughly 249 centimeters. Southern Ontario benefits from the moderating influence of the Great Lakes. The brutal winter reputation belongs to Northern Ontario and the prairies. Number 48. All Canadians say a boot and hoser. Linguistic studies consistently fail to find widespread use of these pronunciations in Ontario. The aboot stereotype originates from specific regional dialects, primarily in parts of the Maritimes and rural areas, and has been exported globally via American comedy. Modern Toronto sounds nothing like the caricature. Number 49. Canadian politeness is about being genuinely nice. Sociologists who study the phenomenon describe it differently. The culture is built heavily on conflict avoidance, diplomatic protocol, and maintaining public order, not intrinsic altruism. It is less about saying we are a warm people, and more about an agreement not to cause a scene. Number 50. Polar bears are not found in Ontario. That claim is false. Polar bears live along the Hudson Bay and James Bay coasts in northern Ontario. The town of Cochrane in Ontario maintains a polar bear habitat. Bears follow the seasonal ice along the Hudson Bay shoreline well into provincial territory. Ontario's northern edge is genuine polar bear country. Ontario keeps getting misread because people stop at Toronto and treat everything else as background. The real province is larger than Texas, older than the country it belongs to, spans 2 time zones, touches salt water, and has polar bears on its northern coast. If you want more deep dives into the geography most people get completely wrong, subscribe and turn on notifications.